What's up, YouTube? Welcome to another video. Today's video is a guide to feeding fish for beginners, more so beginners. Beginners, oftentimes run into a lot of problems with feeding, overfeeding, not feeding the right amount, and usually what's very common is overfeeding leading to a dirty tank and just horrible water conditions. So today I want to just talk a little bit about feeding, and more so I'm going to be talking about options, different options in feeding, and what could work for you. I'm gonna discuss it, and hopefully you can make a decision that'll help you out. So let's start. What are some of the things that you guys feed your fish? Well, some of the things you want to look for is maybe what type of food do you want to feed? There's a few types available on the market. There's flakes, there's pillets and wafers, there are sticks, there live food, there is frozen, and you can also go with the option to make homemade food. So there's a few different choices that you can have, and so let's discuss them in a little more in-depth view. So let's go with flakes. Why are flakes good? Why are flakes bad? For many reasons, flakes are good because they do supply a lot of nutrients and a lot of protein. Now, the problem with that is your fish going to eat all of it? And the answer is absolutely not. Your fish is never ever going to be able to consume all of the nutrients and proteins that a flake will introduce into your tank. So that's why flakes are so bad. That's why I believe flakes are so bad, and that's why I personally do not use flakes. You will never, well, let me not say never, but you will hardly find me using flakes in my tank. A lot of excess nutrients. That nutrients is going to ultimately break down, and it's going to spike your ammonia levels and your nitrite levels, nitrates levels, and that's very harmful to the fish. Ammonia burns through the gills of the fish, and ultimately the fish will die. The breakdown of these organic wastes are also an aerobic process, meaning that they do require oxygen. So, if you don't have sufficient oxygen levels in your tank as it is already, and then you have all of this excess nutrients that's breaking down into your tank, you're taking away from your fish, oxygen. So, that's also a big problem, causing them to maybe suffocate, just poor gill function. So, flakes, great for nutrients and high protein, but not very ideal. Not to me, anyway. Another option is, and I guess I'll list all the bad ones first, is live food. Let's talk about live food now. A lot of people go out to their local pet stores and pick up maybe a dozen of these comets or minnows or rosy reds, whatever you want to call them. You can get maybe a dozen of them for $1. Alright, so is that a good option for feeding or a bad one? Well, listen, think about it. Why is it so cheap? why are these goldfishes so cheap? And the reason, or the answer to that question, is because they're no good. They're absolutely no good. You will see me feed my fish. I'm not saying I don't. You will see me maybe throw a few comets in there ever so often, but it's ever so often. It's once in a blue moon. You don't want to do it often. You don't want it to be your primary source of feeding. And the reason is, these fish, these comets, these rosy reds are bred in very, very poor water conditions. They oftentimes have ick, parasites, fungal infections, and you go into the local pet stores and you'll purchase these rosy reds and you'll bring them, and yeah, you'll maybe, throw the water out that you got with the fish and just put the fish in the tank, but you're still introducing all of that potential parasitic and bacterial, fungal, all of that stuff into your tank. So, you really don't want to do that. And then your fish is going to eat those fish, those rosy reds, and you can potentially give your fish a parasite or some type of infection. And, that's in the hobby. That's, you kind of want to try to prevent these things instead of treating them. I also see some people feeding their fish rats and, gerbils, whatever, all of these other little rodents. I'm not a big fan of it. Those things don't belong in a fish tank. So, why would you put them in? The next option, let's see. Homemade food. Homemade food is actually what I just fed my fish. Well, the first batch of the food anyway. Homemade food is pretty good. There's both bad and good things about homemade food. The bad is, if you don't make it correctly, you can take away a lot from your fish. Meaning like a lot of nutrients and vitamins that they would normally get from a packaged food that you can buy at a local pet store. But it is cheaper, and you can do it right. There's a ton of videos online. You can find advice online about good ways to make food, homemade food, what's good for you, if you want floating or sinkable homemade food. It's all online, and it's a great option, and it's much cheaper. I definitely recommend it, but you gotta do it right. You gotta make the food right. You don't wanna take away anything from your fish, especially nutrients and vitamins and stuff. So homemade food is another option. Next on the list we have frozen food. Frozen food, I love frozen food. However, it can get very pricey. And just like we spoke about, the homemade food can be a substitute for the frozen food if you make it correctly. Frozen food is a great option though, and it's oftentimes packed with a lot of proteins, and you can see the beef heart, the bloodworms. I personally love the bloodworms. The beef heart, very, very high in nutrients. Another thing you can run into with the frozen food is also excess nutrients, just like the flakes. Excess nutrients in the frozen food, a lot of people don't think about it, but they tend to just kind of throw the cubes into the tank. If you have a feeding cup, you can maybe put the frozen food in there and kind of run it under some warm water, and get some of that excess nutrients out before putting it in your tank. And don't think you're taking away all of the nutrients. Trust me, it's gonna be in the food, and you're not taking away anything from your fish. If anything, you're helping them out, because all of that excess nutrients, it's gonna sit in your tank. It's gonna decompose, and it can potentially do way more harm than it can good. So rinsing the frozen food out before you put it in your tank is something you want to do. The next food option on the list is probably what I would recommend. It's my primary source of feeding. It's pelleted and wafers. Well, pelleted foods. Pelleted foods. I don't know. I just love the pellets. It's a great source of nutrients, protein, and it's so small. You can buy it. It comes in different sizes, so you can buy the size that fits your fish. And oftentimes there's little to no mess. Well, I'm not gonna say no mess. There's little mess, because the fish will oftentimes consume the entire pellet into their mouth, and it's it's just less waste in your tank. And pelleted foods. Personally, I use the cichlid gold from Hikari, and I love it. It keeps their color vibrant, and I haven't had any problems with it. And I've trained every one of my fish to eat the pellets. Even the catfish. Even the catfishes will come up and eat the pelleted foods. So that's their main source of nutrients and vitamins. And I supplement that with some homemade food. The beef heart. That was actually beef heart that I gave them in the beginning. So, I go out to the grocery store and I buy a whole beef heart. I cut it up and just, steam it out, boil it out for a little bit, and just chop it up into little cubes. And that's what I supplement, the catfish diet with, when they're not eating the pellets, to get their vitamins and nutrients. So, I guess these are your options. Techniques for feeding. When you do feed, you don't want to overfeed. So, a general rule, I believe, it's don't put more food in the tank that the fish can eat in about 2 to 3 minutes. If 2 to 3 minutes go by and there's still food floating in your tank, then you're overfeeding your fish. So definitely do not overfeed. If you need to use a timer or a clock, whatever it is, go ahead and do so. Don't have food floating around in your tank for 4 or 5 minutes. You're just doing more harm than good. And like I said, overfeeding is a very, very common problem for beginners, and it'll definitely hurt you. So, be aware, know what you're doing. It's not hard. If you want to see your fish live and grow to massive sizes, then you definitely will take an initiative to feed your fish better. But that's gonna be it for today. The next video, I guess I will talk about what happens when there's excess food in the tank, and some of the problems that it can lead to. There's more than a handful of problems that that can come about because of excess food in your tank. So I'm gonna just leave you guys with that information. If you have any problems, comments, questions, go ahead and leave it down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time.